He just lives in it. And drives down.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, he could just.
Like the book you gave.
Hop on and see what he'll do that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard. I don't know. I love the art.
Yeah, so.
So that's how.
Because. Real estate,
I bought a Tesla.
Oh, yeah.
Your spirit. Zipping around everywhere. Oh, thank you.
With you.
So, I mean, that's what we took here in Canada.
Yeah.
But then charging.
Here
50
we
miles
come.
station. It's a charging station.
And would you have to charge?
Okay. But,
Sorry for the delay, everyone.
but yeah, it was.
There was?
We have one. So.
I think we were glad.
I know.
Give us a chance to visit.
So.
You want to start the meeting and then ask if this, I think this.
Because we have to miss time.
Yes. Yeah.
And we take a road.
All
trip
right,
down.
so it is currently 4:08 and we are calling the meeting to order. And I see two callers as attendees. So do you want to take a minute to introduce yourselves?
Hi, this is Ken Johnson. Can you guys hear me?
Hi, Ken, we can, yes. We're gonna move you over to be a panelist.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Nadine.
Hi, Dan.
Yes, I'm Dan Cooper. I live here in Crystal Park.
Great, thank you. All right, were we able to get Ken?
Yeah, move them over, but I'll just leave them unmuted.
Okay. That's fine. So Ken, we cannot mute you. I mean, we cannot move you over, but we're gonna go ahead and keep you unmuted. So FYI.
Okay, super. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone. So we will start with open time for public expression. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a comment? If so, please raise your hand.
Is Dan muted?
He is.
Only you can unmute. So.
Yeah, I have no public comment.
Oh, okay, great. Thank
I'm
you.
here to attend, to see what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Excellent.
All right. With that, we will move on to the approval of minutes for May 10th, 2023.
So I just have one adjustment to the minutes. There was something that just,
Rebuilding.
it sounded a little bit unusual. It was, I think Donna, was your report. Commissioner McCusker began her comments for the fire foundation to be put back on the property. Did that mean, I'm assuming that meant the crab feed,
Yes,
and back on the property
probably,
at the rec center?
yes.
Anyway, it just sounded a little bit
Yeah.
odd, so that probably
Yeah.
needs to be corrected.
Okay.
I'm usually not a stickler for eagle-eyeing the minutes, but I saw that one,
No,
it just looked
that's-
a little bit odd.
I agree. Okay, so Chief, your team will go ahead and do that.
Absolutely.
With that change, would anyone like to approve the minutes?
All motion to.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Okay. Next, we've got board and commissions updates. Lindsay.
Yeah, so I'll just go ahead and start. I was thinking we were gonna do info at all, but so we recently did some changes to our boards and commissions. It was been happening since around June of last year, restructuring them, making them more uniform with all of our other boards and commissions, just so there's consistency across the board. we recently approved, the city council recently approved the rules and procedures document that outlines essentially what the standards are for our boards and commissions, also for our staff liaisons, and then ultimately what the public can expect every time they go to any board and commission meeting through the city, because they're all public meetings. It was brought to my attention that there were some questions that the fire commission may have related to the rules and procedures document. There's going to be at a future meeting, I believe, potentially, there will be a Brown Act specific, where the city attorney's office, the assistant city attorney Genevieve Coyle will be in attendance to answer questions specific to the Brown Act. I can answer some, but I'm ultimately always going to rely on her for her final decision on anything Brown Act related. So I'm happy to answer any questions around that document. I believe that all of you have received it. We sent it out to the fire commission. I also want to say there was more than one fire commissioner who provided comments to those that were incorporated with the staff report at approval and was really helpful. We were able to incorporate a lot of, well, not necessarily all of the recommendations, but it was useful to get the feedback in general.
For clarification, I know the question I had was if you missed, I think it was 3 meetings, you were off the commission, and you clarified that it had to be 3 unexcused meetings.
Correct,
right?
unexcused absences. So if you no call, no show. And then ultimately, I mean, the city council has the authority to remove any member of the commission at any time. So if someone was not showing up, or that maybe they only made half the meetings, but they weren't in a row and they weren't effectively able to be a commissioner, that might go to the city council for removal. But it would be in a row. No call, no shows.
And then is dialing in either through Zoom or elsewhere, is that an absence or is that okay?
So it depends. It's if it, and this is where Genevieve, the new laws from March that went into effect in March 1st. That's where Genevieve would speak to, but it's
Okay.
when we left the hybrid. So you were able to do everything virtually. And then you have certain, you're allowed 2 per year to be able to hold hybrid, but it needs to be approved by the city first. So what we've been doing is that, for example, if the city council member can't make it to a meeting, they're not calling in or they're not attending virtually, it's a missed meeting. Now that could change if someone really needed to be there. It's a project they were working on and they've been called out of town. They might attend virtually, but it would need to be approved by the city. It's ultimately the city's decision. And there's certain reasons that you would be allowed per the act to be able to miss a meeting and attend virtually instead. And it's off the top of my head related to city business. If you're on a trip related to city business, if you're caring for dependents, an accessibility clause, as well as if you are sick with a contagious illness. So at that point, if someone on the commission wanted to attend virtually, they could write a letter to the staff liaison and put in a request. They would send that to us. When I say us, I mean the city clerk's office, and the city manager would either approve that or not approve that, depending on what's going on the agenda. If you miss it, if you were to miss the meeting, would we have to cancel the meeting because there's a quorum issue? Is there a big decision that needs to be made that evening that we really need you there in order for this to go forward, or it's going to halt the process for this project moving forward, something along those lines. So those are the things that we would be weighing out. But ideally, the expectation is that all commissioners, all boards and commissioners, as of March 1st, are required to come in person.
Lindsay, I thought it was 2 missed meetings per year. You're saying 3.
Oh, is it? I thought it was 3.
It's 2.
Oh.
2, I believe you mentioned.
Was
Are
it
you
2?
talking about the unexcused absences?
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah,
It is 2. It's 2 unexcused absences, and then this is different. This is how you can attend virtually, and those would not be the same.
right.
So the unexcused absences and being able to participate virtually as a result of March 1st Brown Act changes, those two are separate, and we would not count a virtual appearance as an absence, because you're still, if you're a voting member, you're still a regular voting member who's able to attend and vote, so you wouldn't be absent.
So that brings up a good point. I'm an alternate. I'm not a voting member. Am I under the same rules and regs?
You would be under the same rules. Okay, so if you're voting, are you talking about when you're sitting in as a voting member?
I don't vote.
But as a practical matter, we've always allowed alternates to vote as a member.
Oh, I didn't know
That's
that.
Larry and Mizrock have done that for years.
Because in the case that we didn't have a quorum.
Correct, yes. So right now there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of you here. As regular voting members. So what I would typically do, just for order of operations, is that at the beginning of the meeting, when you kind of announce who is here, who's not, when you take the roll, who someone's absent today,
Ken, when,
Virtual.
Ken's with us.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Yeah.
Ken's virtual, but he's just a member of the public because it wasn't approved, because it doesn't qualify under the exceptions to be able to virtually attend. Now, this is this California state law. This isn't our decision, it's California state law. Every city is coming up against that. So because Ken is absent, technically he's absent, Donna, you would be stepping in as a full voting member for this evening's meeting. You would be able to vote on the approval of the minutes.
Okay,
And so at the beginning, just so there's clarity, when we do the roll call, what we recommend for reporting commissions to do the roll call is we would go through the list. As soon as we got to Ken's name, I would announce he is absent. Commissioner McCusker, you would be a full voting member for this evening. So in our rules and procedures document, going back to if it applies to you, there is an expectation for all of our alternates to attend each fire commission meeting or each border commission meeting, read the agenda packet, be fully knowledgeable, because you never know if there will be a last minute absence that you'll have to vote on an item on the agenda.
exactly.
So that would still, you would still
Sure.
fall under the unexcused absences. If you miss 2, no call, no show, then that would require automatic resignation.
And if you're ill, who do you go to get permission to attend virtually?
So if you qualify under the new Brown Act rules around how you can attend virtually, you can contact your staff liaison, who will reach out to city manager's office in my office,
And who's our staff liaison?
Chief White.
Okay, so I would contact him and say, I'm direly ill, I'm contagious, but I want to attend virtually, and he would find out if it's okay or not.
That's correct.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and some of the things that we would be weighing out in that scenario is, because you're an alternate member, our full voting board, are they present for the evening? If they are, we would say, no, we're not gonna use your unexcused, we're not gonna use this as one of your virtual opportunities, because you're not gonna be voting on any items. You can still participate in discussion, because you're not technically a voting member. You're not a part of the legislative body unless you're a full voting member at that time. So you would still be able to participate, discuss, and I think that's where fire commission does differ. We were talking a little bit about it earlier, is that it is, the discussion, alternates are essentially full voting members without voting. The votes, really, the alternate members' vote only should count if a full voting member is absent. But you are treated as if you are a full member of the fire commission. It's not someone who we call you when someone's absent and then you show
Understood.
up and pitch shift.
Okay, good. Thank you.
It's confusing.
It sure is. That's why we wanted to create this rules and procedures document, is because it's complicated, and this is the stuff that I work on, but for our volunteers who are taking their time out, it's not always that simple and straightforward, and you're not studying the Brown Act or the rules and procedures document.
So you said 2 misses effective March 1st. So is that from January 1st to December 31st, or is it gonna go
Yeah,
March to March?
It'll be calendar year.
Okay,
But those are unexcused,
yeah,
Mrs.
Well, you're speaking about the Brown Act, so there's 2. I think that's why there was a
Oh,
confusion. There's the unexcused, which we've answered.
Right, those are two,
those
two
are the two.
unexcused, okay.
And then in order to participate virtually as a commissioner, you could do that up to 2 times in a calendar year,
okay,
if you fall under the exceptions allowed for the Brown Act to
Perfect.
attend and participate virtually
Mhm.
as a voting member.
Which for all of us would only be if ill, because we
Yeah.
don't fit any of the other
Right.
parameters.
So don't get sick more than
Oh,
twice a year
kids.
around this time.
Well, but then if you
Yeah,
were
but
sick a
take care of
third
sick-
time,
Taking care of a parent or,
right, but
Yeah.
if you were sick a third time, that would go to the city council and they would decide whether or not they're gonna throw you out.
No, you
This-
wouldn't get thrown out. You
Oh.
just, because it's.
You would just-
excused.
right,
You
right.
could- You could show up as an attendee,
There you go.
just not at the end.
There you go.
correct. And the unexcused absence is just to be able to give us a timeline for when the city clerk's office can start recruiting for a vacancy. Because sometimes if you stop showing up and you say, oh, I'm gonna be there, and then all of a sudden you're not there, and then you're back in contact, it gets a little dicey as to when we have to bring it back to council to then have them removed, which can be dicey. They're not showing up 2 times in a row, no call, no show, and they are effectively removed. So we can start the recruitment and get the commissioner in here who's gonna be able to attend.
Well, thank you.
Of course, I know
Will
there's
there
a
be
couple. more.
flashcards
Yeah.
for this later?
Yeah, I'm gonna quiz everybody at the end.
Good.
I think the Brown Act rules were something we really needed a little bit of assistance on, especially because our prior practices haven't followed them. So nothing, not necessarily that anything's changed in the Brown Act rules, but, can you please, direct us on who and when we should be sending emails to how many people?
Yeah, and so hopefully Genevieve will be in here in a future fire commission meeting to go over kind of just a Brown Act. And you know what I can do is I can send something to Chief White and it can be posted to the fire commission site as well with this agenda. And it's just a review for new boards and commissions that we have Assistant City Attorney Genevieve Coyle come and give a presentation on kind of the Brown Act basics. But as a rule of thumb, when we were emailing with the commission as a staff person, when I email the city council, for example, I never do anything but BCC them. They don't discuss city business outside of the fire commission or for them, the city council. So, and the intent of that is that anything more than 2 members would be a quorum. So 3 members of the commission wouldn't be able to have a discussion on city business, anything related to city business, without it being agendized and open for the public. And the reason for that is that if the public, such as Dan, for example, felt very strongly about boards and commissions topic this evening, but we were talking about it over email, then they wouldn't be able to provide any sort of input or what they felt or any sort of testimony to help sway the decision in either direction prior to the fire commission making that decision. So pretty much everything has to be discussed in an open and public meeting. And that's the intent of the Brown Act with regard to when we can really talk to each other. So it's not in the Brown Act to never reply all, but that's the good rule of thumb. It's not in the Brown Act to not BCC, but we use that just to make sure that you don't accidentally reply all to everyone and say, oh, I really disagree with everything that's listed in these minutes. And so does my colleague Nadine. And now one of these other commissioners is aware that 2 of you disagree and all they need is that one more disagreement to have this not move forward and not pass. And so we want to be really careful about when we're discussing city business, we're doing that in a public setting. And even if you're just talking to one other member of the commission, that one person that you spoke to then talks to someone else and relays your opinion. Now we're getting into a situation where there's a serial meeting that's going on. So you're not talking to all 3 people at the same time, but because I talked to Nadine, I know Stan's view because Nadine told me Stan's view. And now I know if I vote in this direction, it will either fail or it will pass. And so the whole purpose of this really is that the public, no decision should be made prior to hearing public testimony. That is the most important thing. The staff provides a presentation that should offer, you get your staff report. Then there's a staff presentation, which should provide any clarity. There's questions and answers from the commission or from council to staff to answer those questions. And they're not deliberating at that time. They're not really even discussing or laying out what their opinions are. It's just Q&A. And then it's public testimony where there's going to be Q&A and the public's opinion. And then at that point, after all public testimony has been heard, that is when the legislative body can make a decision. And so the purpose of that, the intent of that is to make sure no decisions are being made without the public's input.
So I lost you on. I need you to give me an example of what you're talking about when you say I BCC, because to me, if I send an email to him and I BCC all of them, they know what I just said. So what's the point of the BCC? I don't get it.
So the recommendation would be that you would never email the entire commission. That
Okay.
should never take place.
Okay,
Staff would BCC all of the commission to say, here's the agenda packet.
okay,
And then if you had a question about a staff report or about Chief White's report,
yeah.
you would then email, not reply all to the commission, but you would push your questions to the staff person.
okay,
And then if there's further questions, what we would do is, if I'm getting lots of questions on a staff report, for example, from our council, when I'm giving my presentation, I'm going to make sure I'm answering all of those questions in the presentation that have been asked of me behind the scenes. So if you had replied to me saying, I don't understand this, I would make sure I include that in my presentation.
so the message is we don't email each other.
Correct.
Yeah. One question I would have, and I think I know the answer to this, but from time to time, we'll find news articles that we want to share. Should we just send that then to, is it Diana? Who sends out the
Oh, no, that's the last now.
Celeste,
Yeah.
does it, yeah.
Yeah. And
And then she'll attach it with the agenda and the staff report and the other things. So then it is available to the public.
yeah, and that raises, so the rule of thumb, the reason we say that is because it just makes sure that if you don't email each other as a group, you'll never violate the Brown Act with regard to that. However, if you wanted to share an article, you could simply share an article to the commission without your opinion or
Oh,
thoughts.
okay.
Mhm.
All right.
So
that's
then it
good
would just be, hey, came across this article, think it would be of interest to the commission
Mhm.
and send, but not saw this article, what is the city gonna do about this? We
Yeah.
should start planning for this.
Okay,
I'm not in favor. That would be a violation of the Brown Act because there's no member of the public who would be able to see that or provide any testimony.
all right,
That
good
is
to know.
normally when I VCC though, because, or when I would recommend
Mhm.
VCCing, because if you did send it to everyone
And somebody
on the two
responded,
line,
yeah,
and somebody responded, then we've got the same issue.
Yeah.
So even when sending an article, which is what we kind of, have done in the past, my recommendation would be to VCC,
Yeah.
otherwise someone will give their thought, and then it goes to everybody.
okay. Good idea.
Question then, actually, a couple of things, but the first is, we have two former members who, were both chair and are now emeritus,
Mhm.
quote unquote.
Yeah.
Technically, what is their relationship to the commission?
So it's an honorary role, where they're always regarded as technically a honorary fire commissioner, but they're not a voting member
Right.
on the fire commission. They would continue to be invited for boards and commissions, holiday reception, they can come to ribbon cuttings, made aware of what's going on at the fire commission. We only have now, I think, the two on the fire commission,
True.
which.
Citywide.
Yeah, we used to have
Really?
some on the Citizens Advisory Committee on Economic Development and Affordable Housing, but that's no longer a commission. But that was the only one we had for a very long time. So we
Okay.
now have the ones from the fire
But
commission.
are they bound by, not?
No, because they're not members of the
They're
legislative
not
body.
voting.
Okay,
Yeah.
So that because they're non-voting, you could email them the article and say, I hate everything about this, and it would be completely fine, or I love this so much, I can't wait for this to get approved.
But if
And that would
they,
be fine.
when they email all of us, and they don't BCC.
They
We
can do
just gotta
anything,
be
yeah.
cognizant of that as far as our responses go.
Correct.
So that's something that comes up too, is we're
Just
not.
don't
the ones
respond.
Necessarily
Yeah.
sending out the email.
Don't respond to
Yeah.
thank you for the article.
And the same goes for if a member of the community reaches out. It would be the same response
Mhm.
is to not respond, giving your thoughts or decisions or opinions.
without trying to create a monster, would it be possible to have here's specifically what I came up with is, it would be called SRFC, San Rafael Fire Commission, public file / cityofsanrafael.org for any time that I send an email to everybody, I would copy the public file. Now, that would send a copy to whomever administers the receive site, which would be most likely in the fire department. Would that create an open channel of public information? Because they would have it electronically, they could print it, put it in a binder, they could have it available for all the string of how does the public gain access to information? It would all be there.
I'm not sure would be my answer. It doesn't sound, so this is what I'll say. Anytime you're using your private emails related to city business, so when you are sending an article, your email becomes open to public inspection.
Sure.
So that's the big thing, is that it would be available if a member of the public said, I want to know what Stan is sending to the commissioners. I've heard that this is happening. Then they could submit a public records request and for all of your email that's related to city business. So it already is available for that if there was a request. If it's not related directly to an agenda item, then I don't see what the benefit would be besides just having a trail, an easy trail for if there was to ever be a public records request submitted. Which depending on how often we receive that, it doesn't quite seem, I mean, just based off this moment, just hearing this, like a resource that we would dedicate time to right now, with what we have going on as far as priorities. If we were getting constant public records requests from the fire commission, for the fire commission and all of the emails that you sent, yes, I would say anytime you email anything, I want it to come directly to my email, and I would create a separate folder and just make it available to the public. But without that need, I wouldn't see the benefit of that at this point.
So it's not an avenue to use to essentially comply with the Brown Act.
Oh, you're trying to be able to have a discussion where it's gonna be made public
Yes.
over email. So no, it would have to be held at a public meeting. Any discussion between the fire commission has to be held at a public meeting where the community has access to it. No matter what,
At that point, access to.
at that point.
comment.
Not just access to the fact that it happened and being able to review the minutes, but in real time, having knowledge that this is going to be getting discussed by the commission. And that they have the opportunity to provide input into that discussion, which that wouldn't satisfy that.
Okay. Alright.
Sorry, I believe I misunderstood your initial question.
There is one other, I think it's Brown Act. I've read too much and it all gets confusing
Yeah.
after a while. That we need to understand the separation between the fire commission and the fire foundation. In that, the city would get into trouble if they made clear and open donations to the foundation. The way I was reading it, financial donations from the city to the fire foundation, which is a separate, though the name is there, unrelated 501c3.
Mhm.
The language I was trying to decipher was Donna sits on their council. You-
No, I'm just a volunteer,
Just a volunteer, okay. Well, Steve did,
right?
as I think that went back when he was
Are
chair.
you speaking about the Fire Foundation Board?
Yeah,
So, okay,
yeah. So he was chair here and on the board there.
okay,
Nothing transpired financially between the two. And that's the pit where everything goes down. But we have to be careful that because we have a foundation report in each of our commission meetings,
Mhm.
because we are closely tied philosophically. So is that a gray area that we need to be aware of?
Are you specifically referring to the conflict of interest section?
Yeah.
Where is there a conflict with a member on this commission also serving on the
Well,
foundation?
you apparently. The specific example that I read about would be if the city grants money out to charitable foundations, which they may in fact do.
Mhm.
In this particular case, because we're sort of married at the hip, Fire Commission, Fire Foundation, it opens the foundation up to public access. Because they're getting city money. They're
Uh,
getting a government agency money.
I would refer, I'm not sure that that's how that would work, and I would refer to the city attorney's office on that question. I wouldn't feel comfortable answering that question. Because I think there's some nuances
You
to
can
that.
tell
that I
by the
found
way I
out.
ask it, that I don't fully understand
Yeah.
it myself. Hello. But I was reading some of this and going, oh, nasty.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, with the foundation, their sole purpose is to raise money for the fire department. And so even when we're, putting on the crab feed and there's donations and things like that, the city wouldn't. well, likely would not contribute money towards the crop feed itself. You know, if we're buying, if they're saying, if the foundation says, we will provide a match of 50% for, you know, employee, I don't know, uniforms or something, turnouts, then the city would receive that money and then the city would provide it. But it wouldn't make sense for the city to give them the money and then them turn it back around to the city.
And that's the way it's been done. That's exactly the way it's
Yeah,
been
the
done.
money's flowing the other way.
That
Yeah.
From the foundation to the city.
Contributes to the city
Yeah.
coffers
Which is
in
good.
a separate silo.
Yep.
That's set aside for a distinct purpose. And then the city has the option of contributing to that as well. That's what's happened in the past.
I've never seen whether the city's contributed, but it doesn't mean it hasn't happened. You guys have more historical perspective on that than I do.
I haven't either, but that's what I'm
But
saying.
but
that
most
be-
recently for like the boots as an example, that's.
That was
certainly
all
around
foundation
that.
money, right,
Yes.
right.
And that's the appropriate way. to
And it
do
went, but it went to the city to be used, as she's describing,
Mhm.
for the purchase of boots for the force. So it's never gone from the city to the foundation ever, and it wouldn't.
Okay.
It wouldn't.
Got it.
There'd be no way.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm real sure of that. Only in the attendance for as many years as I have at the foundation.
Okay.
So we
So
don't
can
have
a
to
Public
look,
body not contribute to a 501c3?
It can,
It cannot?
it can.
Oh, it can.
Mhm.
Well, then I understand what Stan is saying,
but it's
because
never
it's a way
happened.
to circumvent your budget. We're only gonna give $100,000 to the to the fire department this year. And the people are, okay, we'll live with that. But surreptitiously, you funnel another million
Right.
bucks through the foundation.
But that's,
Suddenly the citizens are like, wait a minute, we've now contributed $1 million. And so I can see
Yeah.
Stan's point
Yeah.
but that's
of
what I
getting you
bring it up.
entangled
Yeah,
in Brown Act stuff by if the city was to make contributions to the foundation. But it
That's-
sounds like they don't, so it's a moot point.
but that's
just here to make sure.
exactly why they do it the way that
Mhm.
they do it, which is bring it in for a distinct purpose, even if there's a match or something, which there hasn't been, but if there is, it's within the city limits.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Dan.
Mhm. I'll leave now.
Were there any other questions related to the rules and procedures? And the city clerk's office is always available, so, I mean, it is a lot of information, the Brown Act, Rosenberg's rules of procedure, Robert's rules of
Are
order.
we supposed to run our meetings by Robert's Rules of Order?
So Robert's rules,
Theory.
it's actually now, because that's for really large bodies, so with the rules and procedures document, we attached a Rosenberg's rules of order. It's kind of what smaller municipalities are using for boards and commissions, city council. And I can send that out to Chief White to get that out to the commission. It was also attached at the end of the staff report with the rules and procedures document. It's just easier to read. It's 10 pages to start, so easier to digest.
Was that a yes or a no?
It's Rosenberg's rules of order.
So we should be using that.
Rosenberg's, correct.
Okay,
I'll defer that to the chair.
yeah. Trivia question, where's this supposed to go on our vehicle?
In the front,
On the windshield?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a plastic peel and stick.
Yeah,
You're like, yeah, it goes right on the glass. Although,
which,
in my case, I put it on a clear piece of plastic
thank you.
that I put in the window.
Yes,
And
Oh,
then
so
I
it's not
take it out.
permanently
Yeah.
affixed. Thank you, Stan.
Okay, you're right.
and I'm probably gonna get a ticket because I don't put it on my windshield at all. Oops,
But you know people, so
no, I would never. Nor
joking,
would they.
totally joking.
Well, where's your car? So I can go put my business card on it. Excited.
So as I said, yeah, feel free to reach out to our office whenever, city.clerk@cityofcenterville.org, and you can just ask any questions related to this stuff, and I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You'll
Thanks.
be hearing
Well,
from us.
yes, please. I look forward to it.
Really?
Yeah. I always do.
So we will move on, sorry to rush, but
Thanks, Nancy.
Bye.
we will move
Bye.
on to Fire Foundation update, please.
Fire Foundation update. The crab feed, as you all know, is a go.
Sorry, Donna, I'm so sorry, Chief I was noticing that neither you or Lindsay were in the video,
Oh, wow.
and I didn't
Change
want to
that.
interrupt. Yeah, so we'll bring it forward now. Sorry to interrupt you, Donna.
It's okay. They need our faces too.
Social security number. Okay.
When is the
great.
crab feed?
Yeah.
Nine.
Thank you. No, I was like, okay, I told you that last time. Tickets will be $100 for one seat, or a table can be purchased for $1,000. There will be a silent auction held, and as we've talked about, if you know anyone that would like to make donations to the silent auction, by all means, it is very helpful to solicit and gather donations, and now is a great time to start doing that. So that's just an update. There's a lot of details, but that's the essence of what's happening. Also, they're looking obviously for volunteers to work the event.
And it's taking place at,
The B Street Community Center.
got it.
Yes. And then Dave has been kind enough to volunteer to assist with the advertisement for the feed. And he also very generously said he would assist with running the San Rafael Fire Foundation website.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, Jack Devlin is trying to
Job training.
slowly step back from all his responsibilities, which is a good thing. So he's passing the baton on to others to start running the show in lieu of himself. That's about it as far as the foundation specifically goes. But I do have a question that the chief hopefully can help me with. I was at the San Francisco Presidio over the 4th of July, and I went to the firehouse. I go to every firehouse whenever I travel. That's just something I love to do. Unfortunately, they were out, but on every one of their windows, they had a sign that said that t-shirts were for sale and the sizes and the prices that could be purchased. And the point of the purchase was to go to get a new treadmill for the firehouse. So San Rafael has had t-shirts for sale in the past, but they've never, to my knowledge, ever had any information available to the general public, like in our lobby here, that people could buy the t-shirts and what the purpose of it would be. So I'm always thinking about raising funds for the department. So right away it hit me, who do I go to? Do I go to the fire department? Do I go to the fire foundation? Is that something that we should be pursuing? Because I know we used to do it and I know people love to buy them and it's all for a good cause. So I don't expect an answer today, but I thought I'd
I
bring
can
it up.
start if you don't mind.
Yeah,
Just,
absolutely.
I'd like to get some perspective on the type of t-shirts they were selling. Part of the reason for that is after the events of 9/11 years ago, patches that we used to just give away freely to anyone that would request them became an issue and a concern because we didn't
Sure.
want someone to place a patch on an item of clothing and suddenly impersonate us. And so that same thing existed with t-shirts as well. So
Sure.
normally what would happen is there would be a separate t-shirt that was available for the public versus the t-shirt that the sworn members would wear. So can you confirm what t-shirts?
So they were at the firehouse by the Montecito Shopping Center. That's where they kept them. I imagine there's still some there in the lockers.
Okay,
I would defer to the fire department. I own the t-shirts. They're very generic.
mhm.
But I think it's best if you look at them yourself.
Okay, no, that's helpful. As far as staff, this would be an opportunity if the SRFA wanted to take the lead and generate revenue for some cause, whether it be their scholarship program or some other purpose. But on the other end, it's also an opportunity for the Fire Foundation as well. I mean, the more the merrier, in my opinion. I'm a big fan of having each individual station represent themselves.
Exactly.
But also having other additional options that can be worn throughout the year, such as the gracious gift that you gave our members that we were able to wear on 4th of July, Memorial Day, Veterans Day, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it really depends on what the intent is, but there's a couple of different avenues, not just any one particular avenue I would recommend. I would encourage the Fire Foundation to raise revenue. I would also encourage the members at STEM at the San Rafael Fire Association to do the same.
So Chief, if you would look at the shirts that currently exist
Mhm.
and then let me know and I can start working on making that be a bigger project.
I think it would be helpful if I had a couple individuals. Well, one, I'll give you this as an example. We're coming up on our 150th
I
anniversary.
know,
So one of the things I'm hoping members will do is embrace the idea of a unique T-shirt that we can wear just specifically for that year. And maybe for other special, commemorative purposes, but certainly for that year because it's the 150th. And what would that have in the way of a design? I don't know. It could have an old steamer on it. It could have something that's retro that includes yesteryear and today. I had a couple individuals express interest in trying to work on something like that.
Good.
Dan Rotwan, I believe his wife may have been, or his fiance may have been involved in doing some designs for our girls' camp that's upcoming. So I'll reach out to some of them and then put them in
back.
touch with you
There you
or
go.
come back directly to you. Absolutely.
sounds great.
Okay.
We have the caricature of the carts that were discovered in Gerstle Park.
Yes. Yeah, those hose carts are definitely historical. Yeah, we've got the old vintage 1938 truck.
Yeah.
There's a lot to choose from. So it's just a question of individuals putting the effort together and I'm sure there won't be any shortage of folks lining up to purchase them. Yeah.
That's a great idea to make it a special shirt for the 150th. I like
I
it.
got a few other ideas on that, but
I like
just-
it.
I need folks to be ready to jump in and help out. So we'll see.
That's it.
Thank you. So commission reports, and we will start with Stan. I know we don't have very much time, but one of the things that Donna brought up was, wanting to understand what drove us to do this. Why did we choose to apply and become a fire commissioner, which I thought was great. So we don't have to do it now if you think it'll be too long, but if possible, if you could start with that, that would be great.
I was introduced to the existence of the fire commission by a neighbor. Mary Ellen Irwin. Who has since passed. She was actually the first commissioner emeritus. And we've had three, and she was the first, and the other two are still with us. She was also instrumental, hugely instrumental in the creation of Fire Safe Marin. Fire Safe it popped up as a sort of a national concept and then statewide and then spread into communities. She got a handle on it here and really helped bring it into fruition. So I saw that with her, thought that's cool. And sort of kept, and at the time I was president of the homeowners association in the area where I lived. And so we were working closely, okay. So I had an introduction to the commission that way. I went on this way, she went on that way, time passed. I saw an ad somewhere that there was an opening. I thought, I should go for that. And I didn't. And when I didn't, after I didn't, I kicked myself around the block for a while. My next time it came up, I did go for it. It boiled down to two people who applied for this open position. And I had not a clue who this person was, but the process in the city is, because it's open and public and what have you, you get a copy of basically the resume of the person or people who are running for a position, minus all of the personal information.
Not anymore,
So I had it,
not anymore. I didn't get that.
It's attached to the staff report.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, but they redact all of it.
So I have a name, I'm going, okay, I got a name. And obviously resident of San Rafael, okay. But having had a life in the media, I spend far too much time looking things up online. So I looked up to the person online. And I started to laugh hysterically. At the idea that I was going to go and apply against him. His name was Steve Mizrak,
Oh.
and I thought, I knew going in. You know, this is going to be the funniest show on earth. I can go in and do anything I want because there isn't a snowball's chance in hell that they're gonna take me because he's coming in with 20 years behind him and blah, blah, blah. So they took us both.
Nice.
That's my story.
That's great.
Nice.
I became an alternate and he became the chairman,
Mhm.
or stayed the chairman, actually.
Mhm. Great.
Other than that, I have no report.
Wow, how do I follow up that story? I guess I would just say, I come from a family, my father was a surgeon, and so and medical was very much ingrained in us at a very early age. Me and my three brothers were all Eagle Scouts, and the Boy Scout troop that we were in had this thing called Bloody Monday, where we would simulate. It happened, we never knew when it was going to happen, but it was once every, I think, 2 years. And it was a complete surprise, and we had to respond to crazy emergencies happening throughout the city and like gas-filled rooms. Like, it was pretty elaborate. And my dad was kind of the medical consultant, so he was the one, he got all these like fake wounds that they use for trauma, military training, all this stuff. So was kind of interested in a lot of that at an early age. Obviously, I'm of the generation or most of us of 911, and I knew people who died in the building. I'd been in the building like a year before for business, and pretty traumatic and emotional time for everybody, and the people who lost their lives, the firefighters who lost their lives there. I also have quite a few friends who are firefighters in other jurisdictions, so all that kind of led up to looking for a way to serve, and it's been great. I really love it, and appreciate everything that the men and women in the fire department do for us. It's a small thing that we can do as a commission to support them. So that's how I got involved. In terms of report, just three things. One is an ask chief. Do you think we could, now that COVID is kind of in the rear view mirror, at least hopefully, could we do ride-alongs again? Because I remember I did one right after I joined the commission.
I never did one.
Really? Oh, I loved it. It was so much fun. Yeah.
I never
Yeah,
done
and it
one
was with
either.
Bob Dielenberg
Have you?
Oh,
and Kyle.
did you? Oh.
It was at the old 51 station. I got to go down the fire pole and everything, and they made me clean up, like they had a game they played, and of course I lost, so ping pong, so I had to clean up. But it was a lot of fun,
Okay.
and I should say more so, it was just educational about what they do, and gave me a lot of insight to things, a lot of which
See,
are
city
are
mayor,
a distant memory.
city mayor got to do it.
Yeah, the council members. every-
Yeah,
Yes,
I
yeah,
saw that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let me double check and make sure there's no restriction. I don't think there would be for commissioners.
okay,
And then we'll see what we can do to start getting you guys, based on your availability,
yeah.
an opportunity to ride along with some of our busier personnel.
Cool.
Yeah.
And the piggyback on that is, we were supposed to get a ride on the fireboat when we got it 5 or 8
Oh,
years
wow.
ago, and I don't know if you got, I've never been on it.
Nope.
So if you can, we can
Make
make
that
that
work
magic
too.
there,
Sure.
or at least a tour. I haven't even seen the boat.
We can get you out on the water.
All right.
So that was the first item. The second was, it was great to hear from Quinn Gardner last week, and I didn't get back to her immediately because I was away for the holidays, but she reached out to me about Fell
Yes.
on staff now.
Yes.
And I think Phil is going to be engaged in some of the community awareness things that we've talked about in the past, and using social media and everything from Twitter to Nextdoor. And even the thing that we had talked about a couple of years ago, where we had developed an editorial calendar based
Yes.
around seasonality with messages for the public. Things, around this time of year, it's, well, last week it would have been fireworks awareness. And as we get closer to Christmas, we do have that pretty scary video that Larry shared with us, right? Where, you know, the fire just goes, the Christmas tree goes up in seconds. And then the horrible story that Lori has on top of it. We weren't gonna show that one, but we had developed a whole editorial calendar, so hopefully.
No, I think
Phil-
Phil would be a great individual for you to connect with, as right now Thomas is splitting time between DPW and fire, and so as a result,
Mhm.
he's pretty swamped right now. So Phil, and from what I understand, has this is her specialty and sweet spot. So I
Right.
think you'll be able to partner with her and probably get some traction really quickly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Looking
Yeah.
forward to it. All right, and then the final thing was just show and tell, right? So this was kind of an interesting article. The headline is high-tech sensors sniff out potential wildfires before they ignite. So I'll just pass this one around, but I thought it was really interesting that there's this technology now that is wirelessly connected, but apparently it can detect through this sensor some of the signs of a fire ignition before flames start erupting. I didn't understand at all how it worked, but I just thought it sounded pretty amazing. And
Yeah, I'd love to see that
Yeah.
if it's involving preheating of fuels or something similar that may be happening, and then, that puts them at an elevated risk or susceptibility, I wonder.
yeah,
Yeah.
the one thing that it sounded like you'd have to have a lot of these deployed in
Yeah.
a lot of different locations, because I'm sure the range is pretty limited.
Mm.
So it may be pie in the sky, but I figured I just passed around as.
But if
FYI.
it's started, it'll just get better as time goes.
Yeah,
Chief Oakland installed 10 sensors in May.
Did they really?
to test them.
Whereabouts, in the Oakland Hills or in various
It
neighborhoods
didn't
or?
say, I
No?
just
Okay.
picked it up as a Oakland, what?
Uh-huh.
So,
And then-
interesting.
Yes, yeah.
similar to with technology, there have been a lot of articles that I think we've seen here about drones too being used.
Yes.
And
Oh, yeah.
I've heard that drones are even being used at beaches this summer to detect sharks and
Oh, yeah.
like Montauk
Overhead
and
view.
Long Island
Yes,
area.
yeah.
So, yeah, just a lot of really cool things happening in technology to help with wildfire and just fire prevention.
Right.
Amazing.
No, That's great.
detection.
Wow.
Thank you for getting that and sharing it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Comments?
I'll be quick on why I joined the commission. I never set out to join this commission. I didn't know anything about this commission. I didn't know any firefighters. I didn't know anything about the fire department. I thought, I want to get involved in city service and help out. So there was an opening on the planning commission, and I had a friend on the planning commission, said, you should apply. So I applied to the planning commission, showed up, did the interview. They had, 5 or 8 applicants, so I wasn't picked. Okay. Next day I get a phone call from one of the city council members. And he says, Tom, we know we didn't have space for you on the planning commission, but we have an opening on the fire commission. We really want you on the fire commission. Oh, I don't know anything about that. Okay, sure. And then the mayor called a couple days later and he lobbied me. So, all right, I'll put my name in the hat. So I put my name in the hat. And I don't know if you ever meet Leonard Thompson?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
Leonard? I think he ended up being the Petaluma or
Fire chief,
right?
yes.
Great guy. Well, he was the other guy. And I'm sitting there with him going, are you kidding me? He's like 20-year captain in LA. I was just, same thing. So, yeah, so I go into the meeting. I'm just, whatever, BSN. And they say, they come out and the next day I get the phone call and said, Tom, obviously we're going to pick Leonard for the opening, but we want you as an alternate. And I think they picked me because they wanted a lawyer on the commission. So I said, sure. And so I've been doing it ever since. And so I did all the paperwork for the Fire Foundation. So Leonard and I set all
Yes,
that up. So I
yes.
think that's kind of my role. And I've sort of fallen in love with it. And honestly, you guys are the greatest people in the world I meet, the firefighters. And I say that to, I coached the league forever. I say it to all the kids. I say it to everyone I meet. Firefighters are the smartest, nicest, kindest. They're just the best people in the world. They really are. So I feel very blessed to be part of the commission and helping out. And I kind of see my role as sort of the lawyer, the legal stuff. But I really don't want to get into anything like that. And I've offered to work with firefighters on doing wills or, legal stuff like that. And the offer's still open if they need any help. I'm glad to help out anyway legally. But yeah, I feel I've been on it, I want to say 10 years now, maybe more. I was an alternate for a long time.
Yeah.
So, and as a segue, I did just learn. So I had to do my, the ethics thing you have to do. So I just finally did that. So my term is up next October. So I'm going to term out in October 2024. And you talked to John Chung. You know John? So John's a good friend of mine. He was at San Francisco firefighter, retired. He and his wife, great. I know him through SR. You might know him, band, Cindy Chung. Anyway, I'm gonna lobby for him. I've been trying to get him to apply and he's gonna do
a
it.
go.
Yeah,
He's a
so I'm
go.
gonna lobby for him with the city council. I'm just giving you guys a heads up now.
As a sidelight.
He'd be a great
on the
addition.
new rules, you said October, everything is going January, December. Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, wait, so does my term change?
yeah,
No.
it extends 2 months.
I don't think so. I think we just don't bring anyone in. So I don't know.
I asked the city, they told me October 24.
Yeah, so like,
You're
Like the-
out?
Right, because we have term limits.
You're
yeah,
gonna term out?
So I'll term out, but then couldn't she take my spot
Yes.
as the alternate? So we're good.
And John could come on as the alternate.
As the new alternate.
Yeah, there you go.
It's-
Something like
It's
that.
more
what
complicated.
Sam's saying is that, in the past, if someone were to leave or term out, we would have applications, the city would have
Yes.
applications start right away,
Yes,
and then someone would be picked. Right now, what they ended up doing, or what has been decided is, that's happening so much for all the different commissions. And so there's going to be a time where, if someone terms out or if someone leaves, they wait if they can, if we have alternates, things like that,
Oh, okay.
and do it twice a year. I'm not, now I can't recall what the staff report said because it was a few months ago, but I remember reading.
Okay.
Mhm.
so
So,
if we know that he's terming out in October and.
of
the
next
twice-
year though.
Oh, okay, okay.
And who
We
knows,
got-
I don't know, but they might do it June then. and
Yeah,
then
it would
just have
make
that
sense.
person
Oh.
alternate, so they might do
There
it
you go.
beforehand
I
so
hear
that
it.
you're not waiting.
Right,
until
right.
December, But yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's my story on the fire commission. Two quick things for the chief. One, I saw an article that the San Francisco Fire Department has dogs. Is that
Or-
true? I guess to sniff out bodies in buildings or something?
No, the urban search and rescue teams generally will use canines, but I'm not sure if SF Fire actually has their
Oh,
own.
okay,
Historically, they were used in some instances for arson and detection and
yeah,
things of that nature, but you very seldom see the Dalmatians or any other,
Yeah.
canines nowadays, but
Okay.
except with the urban search and rescue teams.
gotcha. Okay. Second question, the fire this week back east with the tanker. And the two firefighters died. You familiar with that?
I'm not,
Auto carrier.
Yeah, it was a tanker with thousands of cars on it caught fire. And I don't know if it's in New Jersey or New York. They're having a very difficult time putting out the fire.
okay.
But it raised the question of, since we're on the water, do we have any issues like that? I guess we wouldn't have tankers or anything. So
What sort of tanker?
it was huge. It was from Japan or China.
So one of the deep,
Yeah,
let's say this, the Coast Guard does not provide shore-based firefighting capability for anybody in the region anymore. They expect the local jurisdictions to provide their own fire service response. That includes what happens at the port. They will come and supplement and assist, but they're not the lead agency anymore. And so you find ever since 9/11, multiple agencies trying to go and get a fireboat response, so they have the capability for command and control and or water-based response. The challenge you have in a situation with a large containerized ship is water and or training. The training I took years ago, back in the late 80s for at the US Coast Guard at Treasure Island, was shipboard firefighter specific training where you go deep into the ship itself and you're using back then they were using non-rebreather type canisters that they basically converted your carbon dioxide into oxygen. It was just really some unique equipment that was effective and it worked. You don't see a lot of training and or equipment speaking to that need anymore. And so if that vessel does not have its own onboard extinguishing capability, you got a major problem on your hands because there's just no way to get enough water into the bow of a vessel like that and extinguish it. So
well, in the article, that at least that I read or saw, that the problem is nobody's trained on, because they had to use shore-based fire departments.
right.
And nobody was trained on how to put out a fire on a giant cargo
Yes,
ship.
right. Now, the individuals who work, say, at San Francisco Fire Department or some of the other major ports such as Seattle, Los Angeles, they have a fireboat capability, puts out thousands of gallons of water. That being said, will the stream get to the point of origin and be an effective stream on a vessel that's probably sitting 100 feet high with, cargo containers stacked, right? And so, again, it's a very unique and difficult situation to address. And over the years, there's been a move away from providing resources and or skills and training to support that. And so it's really an unfortunate thing. I think they're looking at risk versus expense. Or should I say, potential for an incident versus expense. Fortunately for us, the aviation environment can't pull the same thing because there are lives at stake, far more lives at stake versus a cargo containerized ship. But it's the same thing, a low frequency event, but a high risk event nonetheless. So, yeah,
We're just
sorry,
curious.
yeah,
That's all I got.
okay.
Chief, I had emailed you, this came to my front door,
Mhm.
that they did a inspection from the public right of way. I let you know that the address on this document is faulty, that it directs you to go to a website that doesn't exist. I sent you an email on that.
Did you get my response?
No,
Okay, I followed up with Quinn about that. I hope I did not
That's
hit
okay.
send,
I
but
just wanted to make sure that you knew that that was not, if I got frustrated, everybody's gonna get frustrated.
she indicated that it should be functioning properly, and so I'm not sure if there was an issue at the time that you attempted to access the site.
Okay,
But-
as long as you're aware.
Yeah, but I think if you can follow up and try it
Try
again,
it
just to
again,
be
sure.
sure, and that way I
Let
can
you
circle
know,
back,
okay.
yes, yeah.
And then this did not make it clear, and when I get something like this, I think, wait a minute, I'm no dummy and I cannot figure this out, so I wanted to give you the feedback that it does not make clear. They did the right of way inspection, but it doesn't tell me on the website nor in this document, do I still need to have a full inspection done? So what is the answer to that?
Did it show you were in compliance or not in compliance?
Well, it showed one item that I had to correct, which I've
Okay.
since done.
Right,
But it doesn't say they want to come in and see the entire yard. So I'm like, do I need to or do I not?
okay. Do you happen to have the name of the individual that was actually involved with your,
There's no name, excuse me, Aiello.
okay,
But my point is, if I'm confused, the public's gonna be confused, like,
and that's
What's the next
helpful
step?
because that means.
that's
we
why
can
I'm
get-
sharing it with you.
Right, exactly. So let me,
It's okay.
no,
I
I
don't
want
need it today.
you, well, I do
but
want you to circle
like-
back with somebody while you're here though, if possible, so.
My question is, if I'm confused, everybody's gonna be confused. Like, do you need to see my yard that's locked off or not? So that was second feedback. Third feedback. I gotta tell you, the report is a joke. I live in an Eichler. It's 100% wood. If you walk around my neighborhood, every house also has a wooden gate that connects to the house.
Mhm.
So the report said that it was suggestions, which I realize it's a government process, but it borders on absurdity because it's like, well, you need to think about replacing all the wood on the exterior of your house. Are you kidding me? And you need to look at replacing your gate because it's wood attached to the house. Are you kidding me? And you need to get rid of the eaves on your house. I'm like, this is insane. No one's gonna do this in all of Terra Linda, yet they're spending time to take photos and write it up as recommendations that it's illogical. And-
Well, I gotta say, I don't wanna disagree with you because I understand when there's a point where there's just too much, right?
Yes,
Like the fence. It
yes,
sounds like too much, but I have to tell you, wood siding, eaves and roofs, like wood shake shingles, those things that exist on homes that are going back to
70
perhaps
years.
well, yeah, but certainly the early seventies, the sixties and the fifties, we know that was the types of construction that were prevalent. Those things went up in flames.
We know
when
that.
It was fire. And so as a result, I think, as they stated, recommendations as opposed to, mandatory requirements.
But again, I can see the general public getting really irritated that we're talking tens of thousands of dollars to do all these changes.
Yeah.
People don't have that kind of money to spend on that.
No, I understand. And so the idea is maybe perhaps over the course of an extended period of time, you can gradually make change. Let's say, for example, you needed to change your roof, right? It's 50 years old, right? Or 30 years
There's
old.
no shingle roofs. That's not an issue.
No, well, I'm just using that as an
Okay.
example, and let's say you had siding also that was starting to decay or needed replacement. This would be an ideal time to now move towards stucco or some other substance. And so it's more to provide you with
Thought-provoke.
information and help you understand the risk associated with what's going on to say you must do the following.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the only question then left unanswered is, do I need a full inspection or not? And is everyone supposed to have in my community, a full inspection, because if I'm the commissioner and I'm supposed to do public outreach, I should know the answer.
Okay, so let's say this, they prefer to do a full inspection because now you can provide the best possible information to everyone about the risks
But is it
associated
required?
on their property. It is not required if you can see what you need to see from the public right of way or from the street or from an adjoining
And
home,
they can't.
right? So
So
that's what
call and
makes
get
it,
it scheduled.
I think that makes it more preferable, so you can understand and be further educated about what you can do to protect your home and yourself.
Got it.
Yep.
This we all got as well. I thought this was excellent.
That's who, I think it was Phil that Quinn and I.
This is
Phil,
good.
made some edits to that document.
Yeah.
I believe Christine.
This I
does
really
as
like.
well. Yeah,
This was the problem child.
okay, yeah, that was,
Okay.
that's something I'm sure Phil can work on as well, but this was something that she was distinctly responsible for, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was good. The reason I'm a fire commissioner is because of my brother who served Sangerfeld Fire for 34 years, lost his life to the profession. Greatly influenced my love of what you do for a living. What can I say? I get choked up telling you that.
I can imagine, yeah.
You're
We're glad
special
you're here.
people in my world.
Well, we're special because of the support you all provide us. That's what makes us special, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
If it's any consolation, Donna, I got the exact same 3 recommendations. And I laughed. Hey, I have wood siding. Anyway, but I did put up the cover the eaves, the
Yes.
soffits or whatever you call that. I
Right.
did enclose the eaves.
Yeah.
Because that I could do for a thousand or less. But the fence, replacing all the fence and the wood siding, I'll just do over the years as they decay or something. But you're not alone, I guess is what I'm saying.
Oh, I know I'm not.
It was really good education for me because I wasn't about to do any of that stuff yet, but just as things start deteriorating and, as you try to put money away for maintenance, it's like, okay, well, instead of a wood fence, what about a different approach? So that was helpful for me because I never really thought about that.
Composite versus some
Mhm.
other material, yeah, right. I think we got, is Ken still on the line? No, it looks
No.
like he may have dropped off, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so then I will go last, and next. So I decided to join or applied for the fire commission because we had just moved here and I was commuting to work in San Francisco every single day. And I thought, wow, I really don't feel a sense of belonging and this is where we want to be. We had hoped to be for the rest of our lives, or so we thought. And so, I had just been telling my husband this. And, he was encouraging me and we're trying to figure out, okay, how do I make that happen? Do I walk over to the city? And literally 4 days later, I had received an email or it popped up somewhere about the fire opening. And I thought, okay, well, I don't know anything about fire safety, but I do know a lot about finance. And they had said in there, this is when they were really starting to get the buildings going. So all of the public safety facilities. I thought, how cool would that be? So I was so excited to apply and I applied along with 12 other people. And there were so many candidates. And I remember one of the council members asking me a question that I had no idea how to answer. And I was like, well, I'd probably give them CPR, but I don't know CPR quite yet. But I'm learning. So, I mean, it was just and I walked out going, yeah, right. But it was an honor to be on the commission. And like I tell people, I was on the commission far before I saw an opportunity at the city, working for the city. And when I was, when I applied and was given the job for the city, I said to them, okay, but if I can't be a commissioner, then I'm not signing this offer letter. And so the city attorney reviewed and basically said that fine, there's no conflict of interest at this point, and, we'll make sure it stays that way. So it's been an honor to serve.
Nice.
Along with that, or going on with that, unfortunately, I have resigned from the commission effective this month, which
This commission,
this commission,
what?
which is very sad for me because I care about these individuals a ton and about our city, but we're moving. So
Oh,
Aiden and I have just sold the house and we're gonna be moving down to Southern California, which unfortunately there are
Art.
fires, Thousand Oaks.
Nice.
So
Uh-huh.
It'll allow us to be closer to family, which we're really excited about, but I so wish that I could still serve on this. I'll probably call in once in a while. I often watch our council meetings, which makes me exceptionally nerdy, but I can do it. I can do it while I do dishes and stuff, but so, you know, hopefully I'll get the opportunity to do the same and hear you all. So there's that. And then lastly, this happened in June, in early June, but we didn't have our June meeting. And I just wanted to once again commend all of the amazing people who are our City of San Rafael firefighters, because they don't have to do this, but they showed up for a call, and I'm not gonna say what station it was, because I don't know if we're allowed to do this, although I wouldn't imagine why we wouldn't. And the individual had taken the wrong medication. They were moving, and the mom had taken a different type of medication or more of it than what she was supposed to because it wasn't the right one. And she started feeling very weak, couldn't drive, was passing in and out, called 911, and the firefighters and paramedics came. Well, it also happened to be pre-K graduation day. And her husband was not at home because he was at the airport picking up family. And the little girl had to get to school because she had graduation. And the firefighters took her
Yeah.
to.
Can you give me any details you might have about the day, the location? And I can do some backtracking on that. That would be very helpful. We certainly can acknowledge them for going above and beyond. Yes.
It was Fire Station 58, and I'll give you the
Okay.
date, but I was so impressed.
Oh, that's great.
I mean, yeah, so it just goes to show how wonderful they are as people, like you were saying, amazing humans, and what a difference that made for that little girl, you know? I mean, I guess she walked up in her little fire hat, was reaching out to me, who do they know, and I was like, oh, I'm so sure about this, and come to find out that that's what actually happened. Yeah,
Wow, cool.
yeah, very.
That's a good story. Well, we'll be very sad to see you go.
Congratulations too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, we're excited. It'll be good for us. So those. were my
Positive
three
side
things.
is there's a positive side.
That's.
So is
right.
this your last meeting?
This is my last meeting as fire chief.
So who's gonna be our boss?
You vice chair.
No wonder you were asking so many questions. Oh, goodness.
So actually, it's probably the appropriate time to make a motion because of the next meeting. Sorry, chief, I didn't give you enough.
It's okay. I won't be here for the next meeting because I'll be in Canada visiting mom, but I think a motion right now would be appropriate if 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, you got 4
Yeah.
and an alternate who has actual voting rights. So yes.
And motion would be for.
Well, am I allowed to make a motion?
I think one of the commissioners has to make the motion, actually. Yeah,
All right, I can do
it
it.
can't
So
be the nominee.
I'll make the motion that Stan then would become our new chairman.
I second the motion.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then I move that, which one of you two has more seniority? You do, don't you?
Yeah, Dave does.
I move that Dave become the vice chair. Unless you want it,
I
I
second.
don't.
All in favor?
Aye.
Somebody throw you under the bus there. Wow, you'd be great.
We have a chair and a vice chair
Congratulations.
We're good.
Thank you.
So now,
and open.
Nadine, given your change, if there's another time where they're gonna interview for alternates, do we know when that's going to be? Because we know someone that very much wants to serve who's a
Right.
former firefighter.
Yes, I'm not sure. I know it just probably lapsed or something. I don't know. That's a good question for Lindsay.
So did they elevate her to your seat or
That's,
what do we do?
that falls into.
And Ken's an alternate or a full?
He's full.
He's okay.
I'm your only
Yeah,
alternate.
okay.
Yeah, that's the other question I didn't get to, would do there.
Mhm.
We had 2 alternates.
Yeah, we used to have 2.
Yeah, we used to.
Yeah, right. Somehow that magically disappeared.
So maybe we bring John on early,
Well,
at
that,
least at the second alternate.
Can we accept the chief's report as his report?
Yes,
Okay,
we can.
thank you. It was a wonderful.
Does
report.
anybody have?
Loved it.
Absolutely, yes. Are there any
on the
questions?
chief's report?
Yeah, I do.
Anything else from the plane incident? I keep seeing that in the
Oh,
media quite a
yeah.
bit.
Well, there was a fatality. Our members, there was a delay with PG&E's response. So I've got a letter I've drafted this afternoon regarding that going to the PG&E representative to the county fire chiefs. Um, our members did an admirable job, given the terrain, the darkness, the conditions out there, and the potential risk involved with the down power line on touching the aircraft. So, but with that, I don't have any updates on the patient's disposition, but there was one fatality. There were two individuals. My understanding, they were coming in from Minden, Nevada. I'm not sure why they chose to come in at, the time they came in at, with a airfield that had no lighting and or they didn't have the visibility they needed. From what I understand, it was pretty much pitch black out there.
Wow.
Yeah, so with
Was it
that,
emergency landing?
I couldn't say. I think the individual just hit the power lines. This probably wasn't aware, probably had a good gauge on where he thought he should be, but
Yeah.
all it takes is being 5 feet too low, right?
Yeah.
So, so aside from that, not much information that, I have at this point, but, city leadership was briefed within the hour of what was taking place, and the incident was quickly demobbed. There was a power outage to a couple of thousand individuals over there. PG eventually, I believe, restored power, but there's got to be some changes with PG&E because they did not have an emergency response crew available for us for an extended period. And we have concerns about that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but aside from that, yeah,
Speaking of PG&E, any comment on the Blackhawk copter that the counties using with?
yeah. PG&E just partnered with the Marin County Fire Department to provide us with a resource that otherwise we would have to wait for probably at least 20 or 30 minutes or more for, if we were fortunate. Similar to what's going on in Sonoma County, who's now has a aerial resource, we have something available to us that PG&E is funding up to a certain limit of hours annually. And with that, there's protocol on how we can summon that request locally so that we're getting the resource as quickly as we need it. So it's a huge thing for us to actually have, but I think there's a huge expense that could be associated with it, depending on how many incidents we have in the course of a year. So it was very generous of them to offer up that resource to us. And I think from what I'm hearing, after a 40-hour threshold, it could be as much as $10,000 an hour or 2 hours for response. And so it's like, yeah, you only really call that when you got structures threatened.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, or this is growing that it's gonna go and start threatening structures, so. So there's gonna be more conversation to follow, but we've released information to the operations staff, our battalion chiefs in particular know what the resource is, how to request it, and put it in play as quickly as we need it, so. Yeah, so it's another tool in our arsenal.
That's
Are
great.
you saying
yes.
they're doing the same with Sonoma County?
Sonoma County has a resource that they've actually purchased, and actually we got a chance to see it about 4 or 5 months
So
ago.
it's not collaboration with PG&E that they're doing?
Theirs is operated by the sheriff's office, if I'm not mistaken. This one is PG&E centric, yes.
Got it. And they said the pilots are gonna come out of Reading, so does that mean they have to get down from Reading to work?
That's a good question. That's a, okay.
Okay.
Keep asking,
Okay.
but as of 5:24 meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
So,
All right.
no,
Good job.